Well, hello, I'm Peter Larson. I'm the chair of the Ottawa Forum on Israel-Palestine, and I'm thrilled to have with me today Jeffrey Wilkinson, Dr. Jeffrey Wilkinson, and Raja Khouri. Raja and Jeffrey, thank you very much for spending a few minutes with me today.
You're welcome. Our pleasure.
Our pleasure, Peter.
So I understand you're coming to Ottawa in short order, and you're going to be talking about your new book, which is called, remind me, Jeffrey, you had the book there. You showed it to me for a second. It's called The Wall Between. Okay. The wall that you're referring to is, we're not talking about the Berlin Wall. What wall are we talking about, Jeffrey?
Sure. The subtitle of the book is What Jews and Palestinians Don't Want to Know About Each Other. So the wall is between Jews and Palestinians here in the diasporas. The wall is the inability to see the other as fully human. The wall has been created by propaganda, and by intense resistance to the other, primarily out of trauma and self-protection. And that is what our subject matter is, and that's what the book focuses on.
And do you see lots of evidence of that in Canada, Raja?
Well, yeah, I mean, building on that, Peter, we talk about the two meta-narratives in the book. For Jews, the meta-narrative is the Holocaust and centuries of anti-Semitism in Europe. And for Palestinians, the meta-narrative is the Nakba. And both of these meta-narratives, from a trauma perspective, dominate the thinking and the behavior and the what Jews and Palestinians say and how they react to events today. So yeah, we've seen a Palestinian child being sent home from school, for wearing the keffiyeh. We've seen Jewish school students being threatened or triggered by the mention of Palestine or by seeing the Palestinian flag. Both of these school kids are victims. They are victims of trauma, and they are victims of disinformation that creates fear, that polarizes communities, and tells people that they shouldn't trust and they should fear the other.
Jeffrey, I know from having talked to lots of people about this topic generally that many Palestinians find it hard to believe that the Jewish fear is real. They tend to think it's made up. It's not really true. It's all just a big story. Not that they necessarily deny the Holocaust. They just think that that's just being weaponized. And there's no. So how much of that fear is real? I don't mean whether or not there's a real reason to be fearful, but whether the fear itself is really real, in your view.
Sure, of course. Well, the fear is very real, and it is complicated. It starts really with how our brain works. We are wired to survive. And that a main way that we've learned to survive is to tribalize, is to link with those who have a similar experience, a similar belief system. What that actually does, we call it othering. What it actually does is when we engage in community building with ourselves, we are also engaging in the act of othering. We are also creating resistance to those who we see as threatening. The really, really, really tough part in this conversation is that Jews have experienced more than 2,000 years of being the other, and are faced today, here on the ground in Israel, not here on the ground, but in Israel-Palestine, are faced today with the reality that we are now part of the oppressive machine that keeps Palestinians down. So we are victims who have become victimizers. This is what I see as the core Jewish trauma, as the real thing that creates the fear so intensely, because we're being asked to change our psychic position in the world. The way we feel psychologically, socially, is being challenged. Mm-hmm. We have always viewed ourselves as oppressed and underlings, but that is not how we're viewed in this milieu.
Raj, I want to add to that, Peter, because I mean, as a Palestinian, who started a dialogue with Jewish colleagues 17 years ago. And I was asked once by a Palestinian friend, so what have you learned? So what's come out to you out of all of this dialogue? And I said that I learned that the fear is real. The fear is real. Now, does it get manipulated? Absolutely. Does it get amplified for no apparent reasons other than political? Absolutely. But the fear, nevertheless, is real.
So, given your view on that, you must feel uncomfortable. So, with what I see, and I'm sure you see, sometimes on the Palestinian side, the language that's used and the way the hostility, the way their unhappiness is expressed, is in very aggressive language, which seems to me to exacerbate the fear.
Well, for the past 75 years plus, Palestinians and Jews have been demonizing each other over and over and over, to the point that the other has become untouchable. The other has become, at the very least, an adversary, if not an enemy. Certainly, the other is a threat. So, yeah, the language on both sides often reflects that. And this is precisely why we wanted to write this book. In my own experience, having done a lot of work on talking with progressive Zionists, I found a lot of common ground between me and them. A lot of common ground, certainly a lot more ground there than between them and right-wing Zionists. So, on the other hand, the Palestinians, most Palestinians, refuse to even to talk to Zionists, even progressive ones. And that's a very rigid position that comes from, these decades of demonization, comes from, oppression over there, and it comes from, excessive propaganda over here.
So, given all that, who do you expect is going to come to Ottawa to listen to you? Do you expect Palestinians are going to come and listen, Raja or Jeff? Do you expect progressive Zionists are going to come and listen? Like, who's going to be in the room?
It's going to be the three of us.
We certainly, our experience is threefold, I'll say. First of all, our probably primary target audience of our book and of our talk in Ottawa and all the work we do is people who would consider themselves on the progressive side of the Jewish spectrum. But we also have found, particularly Palestinian young people, are much more eager to have this conversation. That youth on both groups are pretty sick of the constant trauma references to the past. They're really excited about something new and something different. So I think that's the first part. I think the second part, our book tries to address sort of three groups. Raja especially talks very directly to the Palestinian community, and I speak directly to the Jewish community, primarily the more left-leaning Jewish community, but certainly not, the far left, the moderate left. And we also speak to the diaspora, to the people here, to Westerners, to Canadians and Americans who have kind of taken a side because one side is overwhelmingly present. And so we really ask them, how did you come to this position? And are you interested in thinking about your positions in a more nuanced way? I primarily believe in my community that our language and our way of thinking about Palestinians has become very toxified, that we treat Palestinians really on an emotional level more like Nazis than Arabs. Mm-hmm. It's not because we think they're Nazis, it's because it's the same feeling of threat. It is this feeling that this is now the group that is putting us at risk. Mm-hmm. I think we've become so petrified of the fear of future trauma that we really aren't having open and interesting conversations with each other.
In Ottawa, how do you expect things will unfold? Will you be debating with each other? Will you be engaging with the audience? How do you imagine the event?
Raja, to you.
Sure, yeah. Professor Mira Sokurov will be having a conversation with us.
Hmm.
And of course, there will be Q&A, but the idea is to have a conversation and not give a lecture. So we're grateful to Mira for wanting to engage with us here, and for the First Unitarian Church for hosting us.
Okay, well, I will be there. I will watch with interest how the debate, discussion, conversation unfolds. And
bring some friends with you so that there's more than
So it's not just
I
the
will
three of us.
post this on my blog post so that people know about it at the very least, and I hope that a number of them will come. So thanks very much.
Wonderful, Peter. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
thank
much,
you.
Peter. Appreciate it.